G'day mates, today's video is an absolute stacker. We have the new update dropping, we have the heavy sniper being unvaulted and some major changes going on at Bugle. I also want to talk about all this hype and discussion around an FNCS no building game mode and why Epic just added no building arena to the game files. Are we gonna get no building competitive? Also, I want to talk about the cash cups. We had the first cash cups of the season yesterday, and honestly, this competitive season is looking so good. I want to talk about the new teams, who popped off, who struggled, and how everything's going. So, a lot to talk about. Let's just jump into it. There is a lot to talk about in today's video. I didn't record it last night after the first Cash Cup season, so I wanted to wait for the update to drop and see what was in it, because it could have been a huge update. It wasn't massive, but I will kick off with the update. We have the battle for Daily Bugle, which is the closest we're getting to map changes right now. It was pretty minor though. If you go to the Daily Bugle right now, there is a major skirmish on the island, is what they call it. Drop in and help the resistance push back to gain amazing loot for the whole squad. Just be careful. Huntmaster Saber is on the prowl overhead. So basically, the boss that you had over at Covert Canyon on top in the blimp is now over at Bugle. You'd fight against him and a whole bunch of IO guards with, you know, resistance troops, and then if you kill the boss, you get a whole squad's worth of gold striker pump shotguns. Now, before you freak out, this is not in competitive. The Daily Bugle functions exactly the same in competitive, except for that Huntmaster Saber boss is now at Bugle. So Bugle, you can get the, I believe it's supposed to be mythic thermal AR, but I played it in pubs today, and when I took him out, I only got the epic thermal AR, so I don't know. Maybe the mythic thermal AR going to Bugle is going to be the only real change, because the actual skirmish isn't happening, which is a good thing, because if you go Bugle right now in pubs, you get so much loot. They drop so many mini splashes, like I said, 4 gold striker shotguns. It's ridiculous. So don't worry too much about competitive. As far as pubs, it's only one POI that's a little bit different, and it's not really a map change. It's more of like a mini game mode at that exactly area on the map. The big one, the heavy sniper being unvaulted and reworked. The heavy sniper rifle is back in business, being overhauled to combat the recent rampage of vehicles. Its high caliber rounds now deal bonus damage to vehicles, making it the perfect tool to dismantle a Titan or breach an opponent's defenses from long range. So this has 2 big impacts. Obviously taking down tanks, taking down vehicles, but it is going to do more damage to cow catchers as well, which is the main form of cover right now on the map. So that's a big buff for the no build game mode. But what does it mean for competitive? It's not in competitive. This one blows my mind for one reason. So you can find the heavy sniper in chests, rare chests, and supply drops at rare, epic, and legendary rarities. But the thing that confuses me is they've now made the heavy sniper not one-shot headshot, which is really something that I feel like only ever competitive people ask for. I'm sure some casuals around there don't like one-shot headshot snipes because they get sniped when they're playing with their friends and it's frustrating. But ultimately, hitting one-shot headshots is really satisfying, especially for trick shotters. It's just an enjoyable part of any battle royale. So having a sniper that shoots a 50 caliber round, which is supposed to dismantle tanks, not doing one-shot headshots is a bit confusing, especially if it's not going in competitive. So I am one of the few people who argues for one-shot headshots in competitive. I think they actually add a lot to the game. As much as they can be frustrating, it stops people over peaking. It's just a good mechanic in the game, in my opinion. It adds a lot of excitement and a lot of fun. But I get why people don't want it in competitive. But if the heavy sniper is not going into competitive, I think it's totally fine to have one-shot headshots in pubs. I would argue more people do want a one-shot headshot sniper rifle than don't in the regular public and no build game mode. So it still breaks walls. It's still going to break all walls of wood, brick, and metal rarity in instant one-shot. It won't break all environmental walls though. They did nerf the damage on that. But yeah, really confused to see this not go in competitive. It was an item I was actually looking forward to going into competitive, but a lot of pros would be happy it didn't go in. But I think it would have been a bit of fun. So I guess we'll see. Also, we now have the assault rifle funding begins. This is the battle between the MK7 and the combat AR. Which one is going to go into the playlist for the rest of the season? I touched on how I love that Epic is now doing like trial periods where they put them in the game so people can try them before they then vote on them. This is awesome. But I also have to mention this is not going into competitive straight away. The competitive note says the winner of the MK7 assault rifle versus combat assault rifle vote will not immediately be unvaulted in competitive playlist when they've reached 100% funded. So we don't actually know whether it's going to go in. It will go in, just not straight away. So that's pretty much it as far as the update. There wasn't really anything other than this. There was some balance changes, but yeah, for what was hoping to be a really huge update with like the new shotgun being added, we were going to have like the blimps crashing around the map. You did even have people go as far as saying that this is one of the worst updates we've had in chapter 3, but I also think it's people getting pretty spoiled on these massive updates we keep getting, when back in the day, go back like, you know, a year ago or so, this would have been like a massive update, like, oh my god, a new weapon. So it's like, you know, I'm not going to freak out too much, but it was wasn't anything too crazy. Let's talk about this no build arena and a whole bunch of content creators asking for no build FNCS and everyone freaking out about it. So yesterday, what kicked off a lot of this is you had a bunch of content creators like Nick Merckx tweeting out things. If Fortnite's next FNCS tournament is no builds, we're making a super team and winning everything. You had Aiden replying, you had Tfue replying, you had PK replying, everyone getting really hyped up about this. This is now escalated when today we have leakers dropping information that zero build arena modes have been added to the file. So this has got everyone freaking out, especially in the comp scene. And don't worry, this is not going to be another big negative, like kind of pylon. No build is not competitive. I just don't get why everyone's freaking out. If no build game mode has this much excitement, this much hype around it, people love playing it, they're going to keep playing the game for it, they're going to watch all these big streamers play it, then I don't see why it can't generate its own prize pool and run as its own FNCS. It doesn't have to overtake the current FNCS. It doesn't have to take over the current competitive game mode and all of a sudden there is no regular FNCS. I just think both of these things can just exist happily next to each other or with each other. This could be really good for competitive. People might then maybe go over and want to watch more regular competitive Fortnite because they're really getting into watching the competitive no building. This doesn't have to be a bad thing. I don't think Epic's going to do an FNCS no build game mode. As far as the arena, the one thing that does confuse me is someone who's not really playing the no build game mode but understands why everyone loves it. I think the reason why it's been so fun is because it's very casual. You can bring back your friend who hasn't played in 3 years. You can get your friend who's never played before. You can jump on, have some fun, mess around, maybe get a couple dubs, get some cool kills, and it's enjoyable. Going down this route of trying to make it more and more competitive, like putting in an arena game mode, I feel like is going to take away from exactly what it is that everyone loves the zero building for right now and why it's so popular. So an FNCS could be cool because you want to watch all the big content creators going at it in these tournaments, like we just watched with Twitch Rivals. That was so incredibly exciting. But when I think of an FNCS and I think of like Cash Cups and arena, like going down that more competitive route, that's more for like the average player who's just going to be able to play and compete. And if anything, that's just going to make the game mode more and more sweaty. It's going to make it less casual, and I feel like it's going to make it less fun, which is what a lot of people have been enjoying this zero build game mode for. So I'm not really sure why people are getting super excited about this. The only difference I think arena no builds would bring is just Siphon, and with Overshield, I don't really know how good Siphon would be. I don't really think there's going to be like the current way we have it with Fortnite competitive, where there's pubs that has all the crazy wacky stuff and they're doing a better and better job of having arena not have all that crazy stuff. If you do that with a zero builds game mode, surely it's just going to be even more boring, right? Like, I want to hear your comments down below. I'm really confused on why people are pushing so hard for the zero build game mode. I get FNCS, but I don't think it needs to be an FNCS. I think these invite tournaments where content creators are playing them is where the hype is going to be and people are going to love it. I think once you start inviting all these, or start giving the chance for all these other, you know, kind of no-name content creators and pros to qualify through it, as much as that could be really cool to watch them kind of start popping off and come up and, oh my gosh, bro, did you see that guy took out Nick Merckx? He must be crazy. I feel like eventually though, after like a season or two, that's going to become less fun as more of the big content creators can't keep up because it's getting too competitive, and then we're back in the same cycle that got Fortnite here in the first place. That's just my prediction. I don't know. Either way, if they bring out more of these tournaments with big prize money, with these big content creators going at it, I'm happy either way. Speaking on competitive, we had our first Cash Cups of the season, the first proper competitive tournaments we've seen, and they were amazing. This season is looking so good for competitive. The changes that Epic have brought in between when the season started to now for Cash Cups is honestly incredible. This season is looking very promising, and if you look at the leaderboards, it argues that as well. We did have on EU Fractioned and Typo, a team that I don't know too much about, coming out on top, but other than that, like the top 50 is honestly almost an entire who's who of the EU competitive scene. We have so many phenomenal new teams and so many existing teams qualifying, and it shows how good this competitive meta is. Remember, it was our first chance to really see the impact of the new Storm Surge. Storm Surge now ticks every 10 seconds, not every 5 seconds. We have had the same change from last season where zones now pull further and last longer. We didn't really feel the full impact of that because of Spider-Man. It kind of helped a lot of people rotate and keep their mats healthy. So seeing it impact the game now and people going for constant refreshes in endgame has been really exciting. The last thing I wanted to talk about as well is I think the biggest change to this competitive meta, obviously other than no Spider-Man, that a lot of people aren't talking about is the floppers. The fact that floppers are now in coolers means a lot of people are going into endgame with full stacks of floppers, and it's changing up how the endgame is played. Whether you love it or dislike it, a lot of people can play Storm now, go for late Storm high ground retakes, can kind of sit back and then stagger in. The sprinting effect is being so utilized when it comes to competitive right now to just make pretty much full rotates on dead side with no materials used. Like, Like, it's like having a pepper. Like, a lot of people need to see sprinting as like popping a pepper and running in the open if you're in a good spot and saving those mats. It's been really, really cool to watch. And like I said, I'm super excited to see it. The EU leaderboard was a who's who. A lot of the big teams made it. We did have Benji, Fishy, and Savage skating in the very end. I'm not going to go through the whole entire top 50 qualifier, but the finals, which is going to be taking place tomorrow, is going to be incredible. Twitch.tv/Aussie Antics. I'll be doing a viewing party all day for EU, NA East, and maybe NA West. We'll see how I'm feeling. If we look at NA East, again, we had a similar story of a more underrated team. I do know a little bit about Sneaky and Statics, but not really the huge names you'd expect on the top, but I'm loving seeing the new names come out on top. But again, you look down the leaderboard, it is a who's who of competitive Fortnite. We are missing a few teams. We did have Miro, unfortunately, start the tournament by needing to get 1,500 arena points. Him and Booga tried to qualify in the last hour and a half. They started off really hot, and unfortunately, they did slow down a little bit at the end. We didn't see Clicks and Day make it through, unfortunately, as well. They both played very, very well individually. As a team, though, one of them going down usually early in the game, and then the other one having a solo clutch did cost them a little bit. They didn't play terrible by any means, but obviously another high-profile name I wanted to include in there. But honestly, this Cash Cup Finals is looking like a really, really good start to the season. Last thing I wanted to talk about, and this is super exciting, we have another creative tournament going in the game, and I've been arguing for these for the longest time. The creative scene is incredibly, incredibly healthy. It's very competitive. It's awesome. And seeing a finest 2v2 realistic test event in the game is amazing. It's only for OCE, sadly, but I guess they wanted maybe a smaller player base to see how this works and to kind of gauge it rather than dropping it on EU and then everything just explodes and goes crazy. So it's kind of cool to see that OCE is literally becoming the test region. We've kind of always said they're the test server because whenever things went wrong, it was always to kick off OCE, but now it looks like they are actually testing tournaments, so we'll see how they go. I think it's gonna be fantastic. I would love to see regular tournaments for like 2v2 realistics, zone wars, 1v1s, box fights, build fights, like all those really, really popular game modes. We could 100% have a competitive scene around them that is not just tokens or wages, because they're banned now. People are just calling them tokens. If people could actually do a proper tournament in game and it functions well, it could be amazing. Epic have tried this in the past, but there always seems to be an issue with the map or the format or something going wrong. The fact they've reached out to Finest, which is most people's favorite choice of realistic map, this has a lot of potential to really kickstart what could be the future of creative tournaments in game. I would love to see this. All right, guys, that does it for another video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please chuck a like on it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one.